The following is a detailed presentation about the medical devices manufacturing and our recommendation to you. The statistics are compiled and presented by Team 13. Team 13 is qualified in the following: Brett Carlson, Masters of Science in Nursing; Jessica Miller, Venture Capitalist; Ziwei Zhang, Corporate Consultant; Eric Miro, MD and PhD in Bioinformatics and Integrative Genomics. The problem is as stated below. You have been successful in manufacturing electronic diagnostic equipment, and you want to expand into manufacturing and selling medical devices. We have been hired to investigate and recommend whether or not to expand into the selling and manufacturing medical devices in the Chinese or US market. Industry background. Most recently, medical devices and the technology that is producing them have been rapidly advancing. As technology is finding more ways to make things faster and smaller, medical devices are becoming more and more efficient in less the space. The industry market as a whole is available to anyone willing to enter if they have the capital to put up. Currently, you are considering this possibility, so you have the capital to enter, which will not be a hindrance. Along with the industry market as a whole, the revenue growth has been steadily increasing over the last 5 years. And finally, medical device technology is growing rapidly with the development of new and improved manufacturing devices. This topic is explained more in the following slide. Industry articles. After much research, we read a few articles that intrigued us and would help. The first article we found that was significant was about the recent product recalls in the medical devices industry. What we took from the article was that there was a lack of quality in 2010 that led to major recalls. From then on, the industry has been focused on reducing costs while also providing top-of-the-line care for their customers. With your expertise in electronics, providing quality care should not be a problem. Second article we found that medical technology had been advancing from the recall it once had to include mobile applications for medical devices. With the mobile application sector of today's society booming, we feel it is important to note that getting into this side of the medical devices industry should not prove to be too difficult. Lastly, we examined an article that expanded on the industry involving to having medical devices being more common in homes. It is necessary for today's society that medical devices be mobile or able to use in the friendly confines of one's home. We feel that with your expertise in electronic devices, you will be able to find a way to manufacture more products that are reduced in cost and accessible for those who need to be in-house. Following this slide will be an analysis of the medical market of US and China by Jessica and Ziwei.
By researching about the background of Chinese and US market, we found that US market size is bigger than China market size, but China is growing at a faster rate. Currently, the US revenue per year is 44.2 and China is only 40.4, but the annual growth of US is only 3.3. In China, it's 9.38 instead. The market size is bigger in the US, but China is growing at a faster rate as well.
Next, we're going to look at the sector and industry costs for both US and China. Now, don't let these charts confuse you because the colors in each chart between the US and China do mean different things, so make sure you look at the keys associated with each chart. In the US, at the very top, we have profits. It's between 6 and 7%. And on the right, at the very top, is also profits, and it's between 2 and 3%. So according to this, US has a bigger profit. However, if you look at the purchases, which for the US is this maroon color in the middle of the chart, it's 36% and 56%. Where if we look at China, the purchases is the blue color at the bottom, which is 56 and 65%, which can relate to the lower percentage in their profits. Next, we're going to look at some of the major competitors in the US. The biggest percentage is this 36.8%, which is labeled as other. This is made up by smaller individual companies. So the actual biggest competitor is Medotech PLC, and the second one is General Electric Company. Now, if we look down below, I've listed the business units for both Medtronic and General Electric. If you look at Medtronic's business areas, they're categorized by healthcare topics such as spinal and diabetes, where General Electric Company categorizes theirs more in the healthcare technologies area, such as healthcare IT and life sciences. Okay, next we're going to look at a SWOT analysis of the U.S. medical device industry. So under strengths, one of the things to highlight is the research and development investment. This just shows that there's a lot of money in the U.S., such as government grants and private companies to research certain diseases. Under weaknesses, some of the most important ones here are the medical device taxes. Taxes are increasing on the medical devices that companies produce for hospitals, and the regulatory environment, such as the FDA, everything has to be approved through them. Some of the opportunities in the U.S. are the demographic trends. There's an aging population due to the baby boomers in the U.S. And some of the threats in the U.S. for medical devices is the narrow operating margins. With medical reform, they are making less profit. And another threat is the cybersecurity, with more things going online and wireless. So the SWOT analysis is a good transition into some of the market tendencies in the U.S. right now, such as the revenue growth. It is slowing over the years. The aging population, as we said, because of the baby boomers, the population is aging in general in the U.S. So that population that is 65 plus is increasing, and it's only expected to continue to increase for the next 20 years. The Affordable Health Care Act that has been passed, this makes healthcare more accessible. So not only are more people needing healthcare with the aging population, it is also it is more accessible to everyone. So more people are using healthcare now. And there's a decrease in research and development, and this is due to a few reasons. One reason is large companies are doing less risky research, and this is to protect their return on investments. Another reason is that medical tax that we were talking about in the SWOT analysis, as it is increasing, companies are producing less of these devices, and also there's an increased cost in development for these medical devices because of the FDA regulations. Everything has to be approved by the FDA, which increases the cost of the research and development.
Next, we will look at the market shares of China. If we see the chart, the most of the 51.7% of the Chinese market are made up by small business. The two biggest players are GE Healthcare, which is 40.8%, and Shenzhen Mindaray Biomedical Electronics, which is 40.3%. The two biggest players are very competitive, and their products are diverse. GE company, as just mentioned before, is primarily focused on healthcare technology products, and the Shenzhen Mindaray is primarily focused on the electronic equipment in the patient monitoring and the lab instrument. By doing the SWOT analysis of both companies, we found something very similar to both companies. For both companies, they have global strengths and recognitions. Their management are competitive, and their products are diverse. But they have the same weaknesses, which is the company size is too big. In that case, they have less flexibilities. And also, the government is now restricting on the acquisition of the big companies. This policy could possibly be be a weaknesses for the two companies to grow in China. But same time, there is also great opportunities for both two companies. If they keep research and development, it would make them even more competitive because they have a lot of funding basis. So they have more money than other small companies. They can do better research and experiment. And also, if they improve the customer services, right now the customer in China, uh, they expected to have a better services. If the company improve their customer services, it could be increase their revenue a lot. And the IVD system, which is in vitro diagnostic system, it's a kind of hot topic recent years in China. The government is promoting the IVD system in order to increase healthcare services. So if both two companies spend money on the IVD system, they will have better services. Same time, they are facing some threats, such as the economic slowdown in China. And in China, there is also a big issue, which we all know it's a copyright protection. Once you have something, uh, there some other people can easily steal your production or mimic your production. And currently, China's government will have laws to protect the copyright, but it's harder to enforce on every industry. And the constant change in the healthcare industry, it could also be a threat for both companies. By looking at the market tendency of China, China is a relatively new market and it just starts to grow, such as the rapid growth of the IVD system. Like I said before, the total market for IVD reagents in China is projected to grow by an average 16.6% annually and reach 2.7 billion in 2015. Same time, the population in China starts to grow again. For the last decades, China is using a one-child policy. The population is decreasing really fast. But this year, China's government starts to promoting a two-child policy. The new baby boom is going to increase the population in China in the next decades. Also, the new government in China is trying to reform the healthcare system. The central government announced that the total spending on healthcare reform by all levels of Chinese government through 2011 would reach 1,130 billion. Also, there is an inelastic demand for China customer. And also, if the company decide to expand in China, you have to face the cultural risks because the culture could be so different compared with other countries.
After much research, we have compiled a timeline of major activities for major competitors in the medical devices industry. When looking at this timeline, we see many important activities such as on May 8th, Mindray exhibited new products. In June 25th, Medtronic named a new vice president while also expanding the use of its innovative trial system. We found that the month of November was particularly crucial when we noticed that on November 4th, Mindray entered into a private transaction to make the company go private rather than staying public. Additionally, on November 9th, GE acquired the Camden Group and teamed up with Shine. With this information, we noticed that this would be an ideal month to enter into a partnership.
So overall, as a general recommendation, we would recommend an entry into the Chinese market. We'll go through a couple reasons why and then talk about a method for entering the market. So a couple reasons that we've covered already. One of the biggest one is higher growth potential, as was mentioned earlier by my associates, is that China had a higher growth potential, which we feel is more important than the ceiling or the overall market size, as we feel that this growth potential will help to increase the market size. So therefore, in the long run, the higher growth potential in China will lead to a higher market size, and thus it'll overtake that advantage that the U.S. had. Going on, we have several big pharma companies, such as Merck and Eli Lilly, and GE Healthcare. Already one of your competitors had entered the Chinese market and had experienced great success. We also seen a 20% increase in imports for the U.S. and other European countries, indicating that demand in China is growing at a very large pace, along with that overall growth potential that we've mentioned. So how would you enter the Chinese market? So we would recommend partnering with a Chinese company, not only to give yourself a good boost in terms of name recognition, which is an important facet in dealing in Chinese businesses. And another thing would be to learn culture nuances, as generally Chinese culture is vastly different from European culture and Western culture in general. So here are some of the sources for the basis of our research. If you'd like, we can go through those with you afterwards. We will be around for questions if you would like, and then we will be planning on making another presentation for the exact details of partnering with a Chinese company and for your exact entry into the U.S. market. Thank you.